Day of June 2015, the Ochelli Effect. I'm your host, Chuck Ochelli. So I am live here on UCY.TV at UCY.TV/TOE. That's UCY.TV radio. Anyway, what are we going to do tonight? One of those other conversations that I do have from time to time. Here's the deal. I do occasionally have tonight's guest on with me so that we can go over various stories, and it usually leads us into a very strange conversation. And again, I want to thank anybody who decided to tune in, whether you utilized your applicable application on your fondle slab of choice, or you decided to go to the website at ucy.tv/TOE. Do appreciate you. Didn't get a whole lot of notice out for this show tonight. I was trying to, but other things intervened. Anyway, Susanne Posel from OccupyCorporatism.com. U.S. Independent, not quite sure what's going on there, but she also does a radio show called Hardline, which is on American Freedom Radio. And that's an interesting hour, I'll give you that. It is definitely something a little bit odd, and there's this announcer guy who's really annoying at the beginning of the show. I'm not sure who he is, but maybe we can find that out and find out about a lot of other things, get Suzanne's take on the world at large and what it is that we are confronted with, news-speak-wise lately anyway. And see where it goes from there. Like I said, the rabbit holes might get numerous and odd. Anyway, how are you doing tonight, Suzanne?
I'm doing good.
There was a reticent, strange, I'm doing good kind of...
I didn't know that my show is weird.
No, the announcer guy at the beginning is weird.
Oh, yeah, he's strange. I don't know. I think we picked him up. I think we found him next to a dumpster.
You know, maybe.
I don't know.
It's weird, definitely an odd-sounding announcer. For those of you that don't know, actually, that's my voice at the beginning of Suzanne's show, because I recorded that for her. That's inside joke. But anyway.
I asked you to, because you have such an amazing radio voice that when I was thinking about who was going to announce my show, you were the only one I could think of.
Well, you know, being that you didn't have a wide selection in your mind, I can see how I picked. Thank you.
No.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. We're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to have to, because I'm just in that kind of mood for sure. I was in a serious mood earlier in the day, but it gets depressing when you're being too serious about a great many things we find ourselves confronted with. Of course, I'm now looking into that shooting in South Carolina, which happened, depending on where you are in the country, sometime yesterday evening or later in the evening, one way or the other. This whole thing going on with that church down there, that's awfully depressing, especially the way in which the mainstream media immediately decides to seize upon the racial angle, as opposed to, waiting for some of the facts to emerge, waiting for the situation to actually come to a conclusion before they start pushing. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? Or maybe they are. Did you happen to catch any of that, Suzanne, that stuff?
Yes, I did this morning in the news. I really do. I agree with you. I wish that the media would wait and assess the facts. I understand that they have to report on the news as it's breaking, but they could do it in a respectful, integral way by admitting, hey, we don't have all the facts right now. Most of this is speculatory, based on conjecture, based on the scene and the way it looks and the way we're perceiving it. That would be, I think, a more integral way to cover this whole thing as it's unfolding, as well as even deal with the racial aspect of it, because I don't think that that's a misnomer. I think that it does have something to do with it, but there's a respectful way to bring it to the public that doesn't necessarily sway or confirm their information bias.
Absolutely, and of course, speaking about the racial angles of stories and the fact that this is, again, in vogue in media in general, to begin discussing race and to continue on with the divide and conquer strategy on a social level among the population, boy, it's interesting to watch what else is developing. And I know this is going to seem like one of those things that we've already heard a million times about, but that lady there that got herself in trouble for claiming to be black or deciding that she is racially identified as black. Now, a lot of different directions you can go in on this one. But I find it really fascinating the way that the mainstream has also covered that. And isn't it bizarre almost to see people sort of struggling to find their footing regarding what side of the fence they're supposed to stand on? First, to erect the fence, because after all, they're the people making the presentations. So they've drawn the lines and then had trouble dancing around which side of the lines they want to stand on. And what do I mean by this? Well, because of the Caitlyn Jenner thing, the Bruce Jenner thing, okay, because of the idea of being transsexual or to obtain, well, what did they call that now? Gender verification. No, not gender verification. It was gender confirmation surgery. That's right. Gender confirmation surgery is what Bruce Jenner went through to become Caitlyn Jenner. And, of course, almost blowing up Twitter and becoming the mainstream and everybody's really focus. It seemed this crossed across all sorts of, generally accepted lines in the sand regarding people's viewpoints on society. It was definitely a point of interest and a point of discussion. And socially, this is supposed to be a whole lot more of an acceptable thing. In fact, the idea that people are spending time collectively gawking electronically at Caitlyn Jenner is really something that should be unacceptable to begin with. Now, we turn the tide here because, of course, this is based on the realization of an individual. And I know this is a complex and strange issue, and I promise you we're not going to stick on this because, who wants to? But the thing is, let's just assume that you're somebody who believes in all of that. Now, how is it that there can also be an outrage for the concept of someone else psychologically coming to the conclusion that they identify with a different racial group than they're supposed to be part of based on their biology? And why is that an even more tenuous point of contention among the talking heads out there than the Caitlyn Jenner thing was? I mean, I'm juggling this thing in my own mind. What did you think of all that?
Well, first of all, let's remind ourselves that Bruce Jenner has become a reality TV star and makes his living off of that. And there is a reality show coming out, I Am Caitlin, or I Am Kate. So we have to remember that a large percentage of this is simply publicity for the show, okay? But beyond that, personally, it's none of our business. It's none of our business if somebody wants to self-identify with the opposite gender or even another race. It's none of our business. In the instance with the NAACP, I understand the betrayal aspect, where everyone thought that she was a black woman and she's really not, and so it enters into the way in which black people are treated. Genuinely, they really are. They really are treated differently in this country than white people, and even Hispanic. The Hispanic are not treated very well either. But so from that aspect, I understand the need to have a discussion about it. But in reality, it is absolutely none of our business, and the only reason why we know about what's going on with the NAACP is because she was the head in Spokane, right?
Right.
In Washington. And so she is a prominent public figure. The only reason why we know about Bruce Jenner and turning into Caitlyn Jenner is because he's a reality star and he needs to continue to make money. He divorced his wife, so obviously he's not going to be on the show anymore. And not that he did this because he needs to make money. I mean, who would choose to go through all of that? It doesn't make any sense, folks.
No, but who knows? I mean, realistically speaking, the truth is we don't really know what's inside of any of these people that are suddenly thrust onto the public scene, that are on the public stage. That's the reality of it. A whole lot of discussion, debate, hand-wringing and moral outrage and et cetera, from all these people who, in all honesty, don't know these people. Generally, this is a totally secondary thing. This is like, it's voyeurism run amok because of the ability to interact, I think. And that coupled with the very confusing map of political correctness as it stands in our culture, right? You have a really weird brew here where there's all this commentary, all this discussion. The truth is that not only is it not our business, but how about this? The fact that the racial lines need to be drawn, the fact that there is such a divisive issue made out of gender, the fact, well, if those things weren't part of the reality, the prurient reality in the human condition, then none of this would be at issue regardless of the level of curiosity that these people held, separate from their transitions. And here I am choosing my words very carefully, but doesn't that sound reasonable, or am I being way too convoluted about the subject, or really just thinking about it too much?
I tweeted this out, and I put this up on my timeline on Facebook, that what we consider normal is something that somebody made up so long ago that we believe that it's innate. And innate things are actually programs, societal programs, programs of right and wrong that our parents put into place, and even the programs that we installed into ourselves by perceiving the outside world around us. And as we grow, we layer on top filter after filter, program after program, to the point where we think that we do things because that's how it is. That's normal. Normal is something that somebody made up, and we've been acting this way so long that we believe that it is part of our nature. But anyone who's had a kid, I know that, Charles, you have a little one at home, you understand what I'm about to say. My son was about a year and a half old, and we gave him some chicken nuggets. And up until this point, we were teaching him how to use a fork and a spoon. So when I put this plate down, he didn't know what to do with it. He picked up the spoon, and he tried to stab at it, and then he picked up the fork, and he tried to stab at it. And I said, no, honey, you use your hands. And he looked at me like I was crazy, because here I had been teaching him how to use utensils when we eat, and I hand him something where he can get his hands messy. And, Mom, what are you doing? You're messing me up here. Here you are teaching me how to eat and the etiquette of sitting at the table, and now you're telling me I can put my dirty hands into this plate and put this food in my mouth and get all greasy and dirty. Are you serious, Mom? It dawned on me that the food in which we eat is also has an etiquette developed around it, and each meal and each type of food that we eat has an acceptable etiquette that we use while we're consuming it. But that is taught. That is not natural. My son didn't know what to do with the chicken nuggets. And it's the same thing with a lot of other things, and I would beg to say probably most of the things that we consider to be normal and innate to our nature are actually just programs and filters that we have gathered up throughout the years that tell us this is how we're supposed to act, this is how we're supposed to be, this is how I behave when I'm a mother, this is how I behave when I'm a wife, this is how I behave when I'm a radio host, this is how I behave in private, this is how I behave in public. I think that's really what it boils down to, the affront to, hey, we thought that this was normal, and now you're telling me this other thing is normal? Like, what the hell's going on, folks? Are we like just going to throw the baby out with the bathwater? No. Normal evolves. Normal evolves through society. It used to be normal to throw babies that were not considered absolutely perfect over a wall and kill them. That used to be absolutely acceptable, and if you didn't do it, there was something wrong with you and you were shamed in society. We don't accept that as normal now. But if we spoke to someone who lived in that time and told them, no, that's absolutely not normal, and explained to them the reasoning by which we live that justifies why we think it's not normal, they would look at us like we're crazy, and vice versa. So I would just say, when we're looking at these two issues, just remember, we made up what we consider normal, and it is evolving with every generation through every civilization. And to hold on and grasp onto things that were made up to begin with really doesn't make any sense. We accept that Santa Claus isn't real. I hope no kids are listening. We accept that the Easter Bunny isn't real. I hope no Christians are listening. And so why not accept that what we might consider normal might just be evolving right now, and we might want to have an open mind about it.
Well, listen, if kids that believe in Santa Claus or anybody that believes in the Easter Bunny is listening to my show, then perhaps there are many bigger problems than the fact that you have just shocked them that they may or may not have at this point in time. You know, unless you have a 3-year-old who stumbled along, and God knows why they would find my show. But all right, putting that aside, there's one other angle on this, and this becomes extremely uncomfortable, and I know that I'm willing to do this with you. Probably wouldn't do this with most of my guests, most of the people I discuss stuff with, but I know I can do this with you. Here's the other thing. There is that normalcy bias. There is the reality. There's the taught behaviors. There are the societal norms that rightly or incorrectly have been sort of thrust upon us in one way or another, gathered up psychologically, gathered up based on the input we have received from the outside world, and these are all programmable. But then there is the concept of base characteristics. You would not make a wall, generally speaking, out of water, because it simply doesn't have the physical characteristics to be conducive to that type of construction. You would not make, a food out of, well, maybe I'm wrong about this at this point, food out of the same things that you make concrete out of, but God knows, stay tuned to your Subway, you might find that soon. But the thing is, there are certain base elements to things that are part of the irrevocable reality. And I think people confuse what is acceptable alteration to reality from what is unacceptable alteration, based on the fact that they don't quite understand the science and nature of the thing to begin with. In other words, it seems to me like, now again, call me crazy, but it seems to me like the concept of male and female, the concept of why a human being is designed the way they are and how it is they're designed, and all of that is still, regardless of how much interference and how much distortion of that is going on via DARPA, via all those people who are studying transhumanism, et cetera, the truth is that there are certain base elements to the human being that are not fully understood by anyone living on this planet right now. And those things and the way that they are interacted with, you know, with one another, the way that we wind up interacting with one another, I should say, are on some level really just extraneous concerns that have nothing to do with anything. I mean, in reality, the fact that somebody alters their body in any way, shape, or form has nothing to do with anything. Regardless of how it is they believe it changes their identity. I mean, perhaps if they didn't believe that a female identity was a particular identity that had XYZ characteristics, they would not feel compelled to alter themselves to attain those characteristics. You know what I'm saying here?
Oh, absolutely, I do. My 4-year-old daughter wanted to paint her nails, and I didn't know what to do because she's 4 years old. And I started having all of these thoughts, and I called my mom. And I said, Mom, do I let her paint her nails? And my mom said, no, not until she's 6. And my husband overheard our conversation, and after I was done talking to my mother, she...
Oh, wait. Can I guess what your husband's going to say real quick?
Yeah.
I want to guess, because I want to take the man role here for a second and think what I would say.
What would you say? I mean, what did my husband say?
This is, if I was in that spot, I would probably look at you and say, why is there a difference between 4 and 6?
That is exactly what my husband said. That is exactly to the letter what my husband said.
Sorry, I know I interrupted you, but I felt like that would be an interesting exercise to see if I can think like Mr. Posel, because, okay, sorry, that's my own entertainment. Go on, though. But so your mom says wait till the age of 6 for your 4-year-old daughter to be able to paint her nails.
Yes, and my husband said, what is the difference between 4 and 6? And I said, well, you know, painting your nails leads to makeup, makeup leads to short skirts leads to pregnancy leads to single motherhood. And he said, whoa, wait a minute. That's what you're putting on it. She just wants to color her nails. She doesn't have all of those thoughts and feelings you do because you're 38 and you've already been a kid and you had, you know, you grew up and you learned about painting your nails and wearing makeup and wearing short skirts and what that meant. And no, I did not get pregnant and no, I was never a single mother, but I do. I have all of that information with me when I make a decision. My daughter only has 4 years of life to base her likes and dislikes on, and she doesn't have all of that living and going through situations to decide what the motivation behind painting her nails is.
Right. So what happens is you've learned your own personal biases for extrapolating what could potentially occur based on your own experiences and observations in life without taking into account that the 4-year-old is not having any of these sort of thoughts or anything else. And, you know, correlation is not causation. So we could equally turn around and say, really quickly, and then I promise I'll shut up and let you finish. But the thing is, I mean, I just find it funny that you could equally say, well, you know, sitting down and eating a nice dinner leads to dating, which also leads to sex, which leads to single motherhood, which leads to... You could do all that just the same way when she wants to sit down and eat from a plate and decides that a candle would be nice to see on the table.
Exactly. Well, that was a moment for me, just like when my son was eating the chicken nuggets. It was a moment for me when I realized where I'm coming from and where she's coming from and how different it is. And so what she learns about being a woman is literally coming from her observation of what I do as a woman. So instead of trying to trap her into, oh, you're this age for this and you're this age for that, and obviously age-appropriate things, don't take that the wrong way, folks. But if I'm putting on makeup and she's in the bathroom, I explain to her what I do and why I'm doing it. I have very long hair, so I tend to braid my hair and put it up, and she'll ask me why I'm doing it or what I'm doing, and that way I'm engaging with her to let her make the decision of whether or not she wants to do that, whether or not she finds that feminine, and whether or not she wants to participate in that. And and we did paint our nails. So she has painted nails because I realized, and this is the realization that you were talking about a moment ago as well, that it is my bias based on my lifetime and based on what I saw my friends go through and what was available to me in television and movies and books. I grew up with Judy Blume. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, so, if you look back at that, there's actually a lot of weird stuff kind of going on as well.
There's a lot of stuff, you know. So I grew up with that, you know, and my mother was a child of the 60s, and she was very, very much a feminist, and so I grew up with that. Right. I don't teach my daughter that. I don't carry that tradition with me because I actually went against everything my mother said to do. I stay at home and raise my kids, and I cook and clean the house beyond what I do with my journalism, my show, and all of this. But that's my main focus. That's antithetical to what my mother told me to go out in the world and do. Right. But that's my choice, and I want my daughter to have that. And for me to imbue my bias of any nature onto her degrades her ability to discover herself and make this life that she has her own. Right. And so I think we can equate that to Caitlyn Jenner. I think we can equate that. I can't pronounce that woman's name, her last name.
Yeah, I was having trouble with that too.
I'm sorry. I don't want to say it because I can't pronounce it right. I have a name that people mispronounce all the time, so I don't want to say her name wrong.
I totally understand, but you know what it is though? It's kind of irrelevant. I mean, I did think it was kind of humorous because somebody sent me a picture of her right next to the Sideshow Bob character from The Simpsons, and they sort of look similar to me. But okay, leaving that aside. Here's the thing. The reality, and on a very serious note, is this. Everybody's an individual, and the sooner that we mature as a species to stop wanting to draw these dividing lines, trying to herd ourselves into subcategories, the sooner we become a collection of individuals on the whole, and we don't separate ourselves in so many different categories, so many different subcategories. The moment that we mature as a species to do that, I think that, first of all, we would be a lot less distracted, a whole lot more could get accomplished, and many, many things in this world would simply cease to be problems. Okay? And here it is. Everybody's an individual, and unless you are that individual, you don't know the full extent of what it is to be that individual. And that's all there is to it. So all of this speculation, all of this pontification, all of this opining about who should do this and who should do that and who should not be, and et cetera, even though it spits in the face of a lot of what I believe and what I think is normal or what I think is acceptable or what I think is even remotely scientifically sound, doesn't mean anything because each one of these individuals has to live their lives. And really, the more that we feed into the speculation and the commentary on this stuff and the obsession with this kind of subdivision and seeking to eliminate crossover lines, integrate ourselves into different areas, and so on and so forth, the only true integration that should be going on is that humanity as a whole should begin to cooperate a lot more, I think, because it would just be a better place that this planet would become for the next few generations at least, till they started fighting with one another again, if we could sort of encourage that. But anyway, I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy and have these wild ideas about, maybe I just smoked too much weed when I was a teenager. I don't know. Whatever it is, this is how I see things, and that's about where I come down on the whole thing.
Well, keeping along these lines, but kind of changing the subject matter a little bit, there is a group called League of the South, and they are a neo-Confederate white supremacist group. One gentleman who is a lieutenant for the Anniston Police Department in Alabama is the founder of this group. And the Southern Poverty Law Center found a video of him from 2013 up on YouTube, where he was speaking at a meeting of the League of the South, talking about how a lot of men in uniform are aware that they are Southerners, and that he had spoken to the chief of the Anniston Police Department, and the chief of police said that we mostly agree with the way that you think. The reason why this is a problem is because this gentleman is a lieutenant on the police with the Anniston Police Department. This gentleman works in areas where there are minorities, Black and Hispanic, and he is the founder of a white supremacist group. Now, this group wants to have all southern states secede from the Union and create a theocratic, biblical-based government where they will rule over as Anglo-Celtics. This group was founded in 1994, and they, a couple of years ago, I don't know if anyone remembers, in Tallahassee, Florida, in Texas, they put up billboards with hashtag secede. And there was a huge movement to secede. We all talked about it. Even Ron Paul was talking about it. They are directly tied to the push for secession. So that made me wonder. Last night I was writing this article and I was doing some research and I went down a little rabbit hole. Would you like to go back in time with me? Oh, boy. Well, you know, first of all, when you mentioned the SPLC, I get a little nervous to begin with because, look, they are a propaganda arm just like anybody else is. But when we're talking about these sorts of throwbacks, man, we're going to have to go back in time a little bit because it's just appropriate to do so, I guess. I mean, it's so strange to me, and I'm just going to say this, and then I do want to go back in time and hear about this rabbit hole. And, of course, this is something that you're covering over at Occupy Corporatism, isn't it? Yes. Right. I mean, I do want to cover this, but it is so remarkably disturbing to me that we're still having these discussions. I mean, secession for the sake of reasserting states' rights and things like this would be one thing, but the idea that a theocratic, how did you put it, theocratic government, that means that a government ruled by the Christian Bible. Well, yeah, a theocracy by its nature is something that, yeah, I get that, but what I'm saying is, I mean, the total of this is basically white Christian people get their own nation within the United States and secede and become their own separate country. I mean, that's really what you said there, right? Yes, at least this group of supremacists who believe that they have dominance over all other races. So they should have their own government. The superior, yeah, of course, the superior master race theme, which many cultures have believed over time. And, well, yeah, let's go back in time and see about this rabbit hole that you're talking about, because I got a feeling that this is just going to be one of those things where I might wind up being quiet and just shaking my head. But please, let's proceed. Well, yeah, let's go back in time. There was a gentleman a couple of years ago, back in 2004, Michael Anthony Perrotta, and he was he still is, he's still alive. He used to be a Maryland lawyer, and he is the founder of the Institute for the Constitution. He also worked with the Department of Health and Human Services and was the Constitution Party candidate for president back in 2004. So this gentleman did a lot of campaigning while he was running for president, and his campaign theme was God, family, and republic. He emphasized the Bible, the traditional family, and the need for constitutionality, limited government. His running mate was a Baptist minister, Chuck Baldwin, who happens to be a member of the Council for National Policy. So So this gentleman on his campaign trail said that he was speaking at the 2004 National Convention, and he told the audience that he accepted a endorsement by radio host Alex Jones. In fact, Alex Jones in 2004 on his radio show announced to his listeners during the interview with Michael that he was so enthralled with him that he was going to vote for him, and that he pushed all of his listeners to vote for this gentleman. Well, the problem with Michael Perotka is he is a member of the League of the South. And when asked about his affiliation with that group, he said that they stand for everything that he stands for. And so why wouldn't he be part of a group such as this? Now, that just opens up a whole host of questions. Oh my God. First of all, why would Alex Jones endorse a neo-Nazi, racist, white supremacist who wants all southern states to secede from the country so they can start a theocratic, Christian, religious-based government? Why would Alex Jones tell his listeners to vote for a man who was a white neo-Nazi supremacist who wanted... That's just the first two questions, and I don't have answers for those. But my other question is, why doesn't anyone look up who this person is before they put them on the air? And why doesn't anyone do any research so that they would honestly tell their listeners? Maybe there was a cross in information. I don't like two ships passing in the night. I don't know. I'm not being an apologist here, but it seems very, very interesting to me that there would be that connection. How many other people have been endorsed by Jones who actually happen to be affiliated and part of groups that we wouldn't necessarily agree with? We need to think very carefully when we listen to people coming on radio shows. And before we jump on their bandwagon, we might want to do a little bit of homework and make sure that that's the kind of person that we would stand behind. And secondly, we might want to think about some of the people who bring on those types of people and why they didn't do any due diligence and vetting before they put out a shining, praising endorsement.
Well, did you drop off, Suzanne?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. No, all of a sudden it just seemed as though you stopped. So, no, you're right. This is one thing to consider, of course, not just in the context of who is going on a radio show and all of that. It's not necessarily all about who is popular with the guy that you like to listen to and all that kind of thing. It might be good to actually examine what their positions are, and all that. That might be a smart idea if you're going to decide who it is that you actually support, right?
I think so.
But what are you going to do? Common sense. Mm-hmm.
Well, it took me 10 minutes to figure this out, folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't think that it's beyond any of the scope of ability of anyone listening to be able to spend 10 minutes to figure that out. But then there's this question that's been kind of floating around in my mind, and I've asked a couple of people on other radio shows about this. We always tell people, do your own research. But it's obvious, it's obvious to me that no one's clicking on the source links, or if they are, that's such a small amount of people that it's a misnomer statistically. So how are we doing research? Do we understand how really to do research? What is actually a credible source of information? Or do we allow our emotional body to get in the way when we read something and say, well, that feels like it could be true. That sounds like it's plausible. Yeah, I'll go with that.
No, that's exactly what happens, is that people don't examine the facts for themselves. They just decide who it is that they want to back, and they often make emotional decisions based on those wonderful things we were talking about before, those biases that they have learned over time, as opposed to introducing themselves to new information. They just seek out those that don't really interrupt their collection of biases. That's what they do. And it's one of those things, though, that goes on everywhere. It's not just among the people that want to engage in selecting politicians and allowing them to be selected for them. Nothing like that. No, not just there. But in every way, shape, and form, if somebody doesn't entirely comport to your beliefs, it's as though you only want affirmation of the things that you have learned in the past or the things that you have decided upon in the past, regardless of whether it was based on any sort of credible or reasonable information or logical thought process. You just simply seem to adhere. It's just like these people that decide that they don't want to listen to mainstream media anymore. So they go along and they find somebody who seems to emotionally appeal to them, and they stop there and they say, well, now that I've gotten away from the lies of the greater corporate structure, I can now follow behind this individual, this organization, this network of people, etc., because I can blindly do that. And now I know I'm on the right track because at least I'm not following with the majority. All you've done is chosen a smaller camp. Okay, you were in the big camp, you were under the big tent, you decided to go under a smaller tent, and still you don't even know the color of the tent outside because you didn't even bother to take a look at it. It just seemed more comfortable because maybe you're more afraid of the large crowds than you are of the idea that you're being lied to and misled, okay? And maybe it's just about joining up with anything that's contrary to the larger group, as opposed to actually seeking the truth, the reality, the facts of any given situation. And they do this not only, in their selection of media and politicians, but in their daily lives. This seems to occur. I don't know. Then again, maybe it's just me, and again, just being far too deep in thought here and just, not keeping it simple, stupid, like I should, right? Maybe that's all there is to it, and I'm just completely out there. What do you think?
No, I think that we're changing the way that we look at things. And there are a lot of people who want to keep things the way that they've always been because they feel comfortable there. There's a sense of security. They've invested a lot into it, and it's very, very scary to think that you are on the precipice of real change. But it's always that way. And just because it's always been this way doesn't mean it's the right way. It just means that's the way we've been doing it so far. So perhaps the idea that we could have a new thought, a new concept, and bring that forward and try that out is not so radical. Because how did we get to where we are today? Like I mentioned before, it used to be okay that if your child had any type of disease or disfigurement at even a lazy eye, you throw the kid over the wall and let him die. And we don't accept that now. But where did we get that concept? How did it go from, that way of looking at children to this way of looking at children? Look at my lifetime. In my lifetime, I grew up as a free-range kid. I was able to do anything I wanted as long as I was home. When the porch light came on, I had to know that I had about 5 minutes to get my butt back home. I can't let my kids play in my front yard because somebody might think that they are lost or might wander off or unsafe. I have to have them playing in the backyard where they're chained in and fenced in. It's ridiculous. But that's only within my lifetime. Our ideas change. Our societal norms change. And we're going through another change right now. I think that the push and pull, the us versus them, is really different sects of the collective who think that we should have things a certain way, whether it's the way it's always been or the way it could be in the future. And we're seeing that clash battle right now. And of course people have to choose sides, and eventually you do have to choose a side. You have to either be on the side of tradition or the side of progress. And we get to decide where that goes and how long it takes before we progress, or if we ever do. We get to decide whether or not we stay traditional or move forward. But either way we decide, right now we're in the middle of the storm. And it's very difficult to see how big it is or where it's going to land or what's going to happen in the future when you're in the midst of it right now.
Well, right. And of course, you and I also have the, common experience of being conditioned a certain way. You're a little younger than I am, but generally we're in nearly the same age category. The fact is that we were also conditioned while we were growing up to think about, at least, generally in society, to constantly consider the idea that the children were at risk. This was sort of introduced to us at that time, and I think that has resonated throughout the society too. At this point, the concept of having to protect your children because there are so many things out there. They're looking to snatch them. They're looking to do harm to them. There's molesters everywhere. All this kind of thing was something that also emerged during our generation, which definitely colors our perception of how to deal with those realities as well, and how protective one should be of their children. Of course, your mom allowing you to be more of a free-range kid was actually a little bit odd. Generally speaking, active parents didn't do that when we were growing up, because they were all meant to believe that no matter, if you didn't keep your eyes on them at all times, they were pretty much at risk of something, whether it be, from the almost cartoonish drug dealer that would approach randomly children all over the place, or the molesters that were hiding everywhere, or child killers, et cetera, that were meant to sort of be the boogeymen that were everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. And that did color our perceptions as kids growing up, because even if we weren't held to that very protective sort of way when it came to our parents' interaction with us, we knew kids like this, whose parents were very afraid to let them practically leave the threshold of their home, and this winds up resonating later. And of course, and I realize that there are people nowadays that are beginning to reevaluate this. But this is something that happens, that there's a constant reevaluation of what is the proper procedure, what is the most effective way, what is the best way to raise your children, what is the et cetera, et cetera. And this is one of those things that, again, changes with the collective wisdom. And sometimes we go backwards to things that used to be, and sometimes we go seemingly into new things that, I swear, every time I see something new, it appears as though it's actually something recycled from the past. But it's part of the reality, right?
That absolutely is. That's how we do things. We look at what happened in the past. We assess whether or not it's working. The mandates or the social mores that we implement, we look and see if generation later, whether or not that turned out right. And we make changes with every generation. That's what we do. We constantly do that. It's when it's something so big, like saying that you identify being African American, or saying that you identify as the opposite gender. That's when we say, oh, no, too big of a change, too big of an idea. That's not how it's supposed to be. But really, the way the brain works is very, very complex. And we assume that because a baby is born, that everything is working the way that we assume it should work, to make the outcome the social norm that we accept. But really, that's not true. We are a machine that is in flux constantly. When we are infants, when we are in utero, there are millions of things that can happen to us to change the development of the structure of our brain and our physiological makeup. And they could be something so small and yet have such a huge impact on the way we are able to develop from that point on. And you may not look any different. You may not talk any differently. You may not do things differently, but there is a difference in the way your brain processes information. The long-term outcome of things like this that I'm talking about are degenerative neurological disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. No matter how they originated, whether it was toxicity or some other issue. The fact is, the environment, the way we perceive things, that all changes the synaptic relationship in our brain. And really, all our brain is doing is cataloging information and storing it for later use. so that we can recognize things, so that we can learn from our mistakes, so that we can do things differently or attempt to do things quote-unquote better than we did before. But really, there is no correct way of doing that because it's all messy and it's all happenstance. And if it works out, we say that we were successful. Well, what does that really mean? It just means that it worked out and nobody got hurt and everything was happy and everything was fine. But when it doesn't work out, we call it a mistake, and that intimates blame. And so then we have to find someone to blame. And that blame turns into fixing a problem that is perceived, because you wouldn't have a point of blame if there wasn't a problem that created something that you could blame. You see how crazy and messy this becomes? And so when we say normal, when we say this is how it should be, when we say that doesn't make any sense, those phrases don't make any sense. Those phrases are inaccurate. Those phrases are like Linus's blanket. They are a way for you, if you're speaking to someone and they use a phrase like that, it's a signal for you to understand that this person believes in something and their personal paradigm has been shifted and they don't know how to deal with it.
Well, this is true, and that's, again, where I would cap this whole thing off, is to say that we've reached a point in history here where we have the remarkable ability to re-examine a great many things, to really start from the bottom to the and work our way to the top of everything that is important in our lives. And we could start at the bottom or start at the top, it doesn't matter. But everything that we decide is important to our daily lives as human beings, as individuals, as a collective society. And really what should be done here is a re-examination of just about everything, and I do mean from the most basic principles on up or down, depending on which way you want to go. The fact that the language is being utilized in certain ways to create certain effects, everything else, one must sort of acquire a language filter, along with your information filter, along with your emotional filter, so that you're not entirely ruled by your emotions, but then again, to be devoid of them would also be a problem. To sort of seek balance and truth in the reality around us, this would be, in my opinion, in my estimation, a remarkably credible and, well, positive thing to do. I think every last one of us could sit and reevaluate even our most basic understandings of other people, the planet around us, etc., etc. And look, I don't want to keep staying in this kind of, well, philosophical rut. I mean, there's a whole lot of other places we could go. And, I mean, if you want to add in anything else to this, go right ahead. But otherwise, I'm actually going to randomly pull something off of Occupy Corporatism, which, of course, is your website, occupycorporatism.com, and talk about that, if you don't mind.
No, let's go for the random article.
Okay. Well, here we go. This is one that caught in my eye, and this is, let's see, it says it was published June 12th, okay? And I remember seeing this. I don't remember how many days ago, but I know it ran across, and I read it a few days ago. So, interesting discussion here, though. Political candidates hire crowds on demand to increase voter support. I almost want to say I'm amazed that this is even remarkable in the news feeds. You know, like, this is something that I would kind of have expected all along, pretty much, except that the technology has aided them. So, I don't know. Let's go from there. And what is it that you think are key points here on this particular story?
Key points is that, well, first of all, not every crowd is paid for. Not every event has a crisis actor in it, okay?
You know what? You're right. We should absolutely give the disclaimer that there is such a thing as legitimate individuals who are involved in tragedies, as legitimate individuals that are involved in, believe it or not, publicly supporting candidates, that there are individuals that are actually not bought and paid for and show up voluntarily to events, scenarios, and situations. Not everybody is getting paid, and not everybody is hired to do the job of simply being a warm body everywhere you go. you're right. We should absolutely start off there. Go ahead.
It's unfortunate we have to do that, but stay calm. Everything's okay.
Yes.
But there is a corporation out of California called Crowds on Demand. This corporation was started in 2012, so before you get all crazy about it, they had nothing to do with the previous presidential election. But the CEO of that company, Adam Swart, did intimate he did not give out any names because he is bound by non-disclosure agreements himself, which he has everyone sign, including these actors who show up for these fake events. So he didn't give out any names, but he did say to the media that he has had senators on the state and federal level, congressmen as well, and one presidential candidate approach him for the use of his services with Crowds on Demand. So what Crowds on Demand does is, according to their website, they deliver enthusiastic crowds for corporate PR stunts, political protests, and self-promotion. So if you want to feel like a celebrity for the day, they'll send some paparazzi out to meet you at the airport or follow you down the street, and everybody will think you're somebody. Or if you are Tim Draper, who a couple of years ago was pushing for the 6 Californias, California the state, to break up into 6 parts. Like, we need more states in this union. But anyway.
Wow. Wait a minute. Really? That was, I've forgotten this. This made it to the ballot that there was a proposal to split California into 6 equally weird parts?
Well, not equally weird, but yeah, 6 parts.
Well, it's California, and, I'm just speculating that they could be equally weird. I mean, potentially you could have a concentration of weirdness, because California, to me, is another planet. I know, here we go back to my personal biases, right? But the couple of months that I spent out there when I was younger, it just leads me to believe that not only is California not entirely part of the United States, but in some ways I don't believe it's part of this planet. It is definitely evidence that there may be visitors among us. But then again, that might have just been my personal experience, and your experience, listener, may vary. Okay, sorry. But 6 parts. All right, I'll qualify it. I won't qualify it. How about that? 6 parts, California being, and this was a ballot initiative? I don't recall this.
Oh, yeah, I covered it on my website from the time that he announced it. He is a venture capitalist. His name is Tim Draper, and he works in Silicon Valley and has invested in a lot of tech corporations. And so he's very, very wealthy. And he decided that it would be better if Silicon Valley had their own thing going on. And he took that idea and said, why not just break it up into 6 parts? So he actually got this on the ballot. Californians voted it down because they have, I don't know, a little bit of sense at least. I did live in California for a while, folks, so I know what I'm talking about. But this gentleman spent $51,000 for Crowds on Demand to set up manufacture crowds to promote his cause and bring attention to it. $51,000.
51 G's to get crowds to show up, to literally support that initiative, or was it?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, the reason being, we have an innate need to belong to the crowd. Everyone does. Nobody is above it. I don't care who you say. The reason why you have that crowd of friends who don't belong is because that's your new crowd, okay? And It's part of our human nature. That's just how we are. But people like, Crowds on Demand, what they do is they tap into that, and you're walking down the street or you're watching the news and you see a lot of people protesting or a lot of people gathered in a particular place, and your curiosity is to, if you're physically there, go over there and see what's happening and maybe join in if you agree with some of the things that you're seeing. So a stunt like this for Tim Draper was worth the $51,000 because those people would say, well, wait a minute, if everybody feels so passionately about breaking up California into 6 parts, why don't I feel passionately about breaking up California into 6 parts? I should feel that way. Let me go join them.
strategically, you're hiring the crowd so that there's a crowd for other individuals to be attracted to. Actually, pretty intelligent concept. Bravo to the entrepreneur that came up with that particular idea. Because given the atmosphere of things as they are, not actually bad. Huh.
Well, if you are Hillary Clinton or if you're Jeb Bush just announced that he's running for president finally at Miami-Dade Community College. Like, what the hell was he thinking? Oh, my God, Miami-Dade Community. Anyway. But in order to make sure that his event is as big as it could be, there is a possibility, I don't know this for a fact, but there is a possibility that a portion of the audience was paid for. And if they were hired by Crowds on Demand, each one of those participants got about $15 an hour to stand there and scream. So if you're on television and you see Jeb Bush announcing his presidency and he's got 25 people in the audience, you're like, Jeb Bush, he's funny. Look at him announcing for president. What a cute little candidate. But if you see Jeb Bush announce his presidency to 100,000 people, then you're like, oh, wait a minute, Jeb Bush just announced presidency for candidate. Look at that. Well, that's the difference, and that's why it's worth $51,000 or however X amount of thousands of dollars you're going to spend. That's a drop in the bucket. It's perception. That's what they're paying for. They're paying for people to perceive them differently than they actually are, and that really does work. In fact, Crowds on Demand worked for the voter registration for the GOP. Now, if you remember, in the midterm elections for our representatives and in Congress, and we saw a huge turnout for the GOP. Mm-hmm. Well, could it be that Crowds on Demand helped that by setting up these fake crowds and drawing so much attention that the GOP voters were actually inspired to be engaged in their party and go out and vote?
Well, and again, not saying that Jeb Bush did this or anything, but the potential exists for anybody to do this, provided that they have the cash. I mean, okay, the fact is that no matter what it is that you were attempting to do publicly, and you were having an event, whether it be a protest, a political rally, anything, in fact, a press conference, and say you wanted to have a display of popularity in order to induce others to buy into the perception that you are popular, et cetera, right? This could be something that might have a lot to do with a whole lot of these situations where one steps back and thinks to themselves on occasion, who are these people that actually showed up to support this? I find myself doing that a lot, but again, the concept of actually hiring the crowds, pretty interesting. I mean, there are people that, pay for likes on Facebook and things like this also. I mean, really, it's all over the place, whether you want to create the perception that you have a popular trademark or that your cause is popular or that an event is actually garnering a whole lot of attention. And it's nothing new. Again, I mean, there's plenty of protesters and things that have been paid in the past or that were exchanged. I mean, even when I was, now this is going to sound like a crazy rabbit hole to go on, but when I was speaking to, the lady who survived the Jonestown mass casualty event, Laura Cole, she was describing to me how Jones would exhort his followers to go and show up at rallies. And of course, this built in capital among individuals that had political causes in San Francisco. So even though cash wasn't necessarily being exchanged, although in some cases it might have been, there was an exchange for having a mass of warm bodies show up and creating the perception that there was a force to be reckoned with behind said cause. And, gee, isn't it interesting how this has now, been modernized and turned into a business? But, I mean, these types of scenarios have existed for a long time. I mean, are you aware of that, though, that there have been plenty of protesters and people that, are supposed to be voluntarily showing up to do things like carry signs or do chants or, lead marches and things like that, that the crowds have been padded in the past by all sorts of exchanges? I mean, you're aware of that, right?
Absolutely. Just recently, the senator down in California with SB 277, Richard Pan, when he was running to get that seat on the state Senate, he enlisted the daughter of a friend of his at one of the California Medical Association, a big lobby group.
Mm-hmm.
And so he used the daughter, who was like, I think about 5 at the time, in a lot of adverts on television because she's adorable. And this would be great. It would be a great emotional tie to him, and people would see him in a particular light. And this was completely manufactured. He portrayed this girl as just one of his patients, but she's not. So this sort of tactic happens all the time, and it happens in...
Whoops, somehow the call just dropped there. Oh,
I'm sorry.
There you go.
I'm
You're
here.
Back. I was
This
say,
happens.
It happens. You were talking about the 5-year-old who had been hired and well, not necessarily hired, but was sort of portrayed, as a patient, even though she was sort of volunteered to the position in order to create a nice public perception that this guy could be associated to this cute little 5-year-old girl. And of course, spokespeople and things like that are hired all the time in order to create the perception. I mean, the jokes about, gee, they hire, hot-looking women in order to drink beer in commercials so that you think that somehow they are, synonymous with one another. You get the beer, then these types of women will come around, this kind of thing. But this sort of, technique in advertising has gone to another level here when you can actually hire filler crowds. And like I said, it's not anything new. And you were discussing that situation when you kind of got cut off. So.
Oh, absolutely. It is nothing new. It's because we fall for it. It's because of the psychological aspect that I was talking about earlier. We want to be part of a crowd, and we want to be on the right side of an issue, and we don't want to be outcasts. So if there's a big crowd of people and they all agree with this particular issue, then maybe we should rethink our stance, because we're not, otherwise we might be outcasts. And they use this and tap into it. And it's used, the complete Axe body spray line of products were used.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only tactic they used in their commercials. Like, supposedly you spray the stuff on and all of a sudden hot girls are going to want to have sex with you. Really?
They will be magnetically attracted to you regardless of their proximity. In fact,
Exactly.
They will come crashing on your body just because you utilize their particular biochemical pheromone mimicker. Yeah, absolutely. I was laughing as I was picturing.
Do that, L'Oreal uses that with their haircut products. You deserve it. You're worth it. Really? Oh, because I didn't have the self-esteem to look good, but if I buy this product, now I know how much I'm worth, and women fall for it. There's lots of women who put that stuff in their hair last night because they think now they're worth it.
Well, like the male enhancement drugs are being sold utilizing fairly attractive but somewhat mature women discussing it with a man, because this makes it a whole lot more acceptable. The idea that this attractive and yet mature woman is imploring you that this is a good thing for you to have, because after all, smirk, that's the way it goes.
Well, also that taps into the fragile male ego, who doesn't want to admit that he might need a little assistance in the bedroom. It's a lot easier if your loving spouse suggests something to you in a conducive, in a way that you would receive it, and of course your wife or your girlfriend would be able to do that. And that's why they have those commercials out there, because they're hoping that the wives will watch this commercial and then in a respectful way, not to bruise their husband or their boyfriend's ego, and let them know that this might be something that they want to try. It's a double manipulative propaganda tactic, because they're programming your significant other to come at you and tell you of your inadequacies, but there's a way to prevent these inadequacies from continuing, honey, if you just take this pill.
Right, and it's multifaceted. Like I said, it's a whole lot more. And I've always made this joke too that even when the pharmaceutical companies do these ads where they tell you that, everything from rectal bleeding to bloating of your organs to death could be a possibility. When they use a very smooth, sort of soothing female voice to explain it to you, it does go by a lot quicker. At least for me, probably because, well, I must fall into that category of having that fragile male ego. So,
Well, also you have to take into account that men have selective hearing. And so men might actually tune it out when they hear a woman talking about all these nasty things because it kind of sounds like a list of things. And when your wife or your girlfriend comes at you with a list of things, what do, guys? You tune it out. No matter what it is, you start to shut off.
Wait a minute. Are you asserting that women do not have selective hearing?
What? I'm sorry, what did you say?
Thank you. I knew that was coming. Exactly. Okay, then. Yes, no, but you are correct. This does, of course, make it a whole lot more palatable and lets it goes by for probably the majority of the male population because, after all, it does just sort of sound like a soothing, sing-songy kind of thing. And, gee, the actual details of the words might not be as stressful or important based on the fact that there's this soothing, pleasant tone attached to it. Yes, men are definitely simple creatures, but I'm going to leave that right there, okay? Before I get myself in any more trouble. My listeners hate me enough as it is. So, but moving forward with this idea, this concept of hiring your own crowd, of crowds on demand. I mean, as you go further into the story, I mean, what do you come to about this?
I think that we need to exercise self-discernment when we see someone who is making a big stink in the public eye, whether it's in front of us or on television. We need to just step back and ask yourself, do I agree with that individual's stance? If it's a president or if it's a elected official on the municipal level or state, we cannot allow ourselves to be swayed by popularity. Popularity doesn't mean anything. I remember the popular kids in school. And in high school, I remember them distinctly. And what really was deeply burned into my mind, like really seared into my neocortex, was the fact that once I got to college, those same kids who were popular, who thought I was a geek, wanted to be my friend because they didn't know anybody in college and they saw me in the hall and they said, "Hey, Suzanne, what's up?" It's because popularity doesn't matter. It's only as good as the moment. And when the moment is gone, so does the popularity go. So don't worry about what everyone thinks. Think about how this person, if it's an elected official, how this person's going to affect your daily life and the life of your children and your grandchildren, your community, your country, the relationship of your country to other countries. These are the things that are important. It's not just a pretty face, a neat haircut, and a really good pressed suit. It is the integrity of the person. And since popularity has nothing to do with integrity and everything to do with superficiality, popularity should never be a defining factor in any decision making, ever.
No, it should not be because popularity is not based on anything that actually has a direct effect on your personal life. And that's something that should be taken into account not only in these public arenas, but probably in your personal life. The idea that something is a popular, acceptable notion should not be the primary reason why one adopts the behavior, the product, whatever. And, well, sounds like I'm repeating myself in a slightly different way, doesn't it?
Hey, sometimes you have to say it and rephrase it and repackage it, rebrand it, and spit it back out.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem that way sometimes. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's move to another random story, okay? Because I don't know why it is this ties together in my mind, but it does. You have the employees at the TSA, that story. And I'm trying to find the headline here because I know I went over it before. But let's see. Oh, employee terrorist ties and 6 more reasons to get rid of the TSA. Well, our friends at the TSA.
The most beloved of all of the wasteful federal agencies.
Are you sure? Because I thought the NSA might be the
Oh,
most beloved. No?
I think you might be right. I think they have trumped the TSA. I
Mm.
think you have. I would say that.
But the TSA is definitely still in contention. Because I haven't taken an airplane since.
I
since.
haven't either. I haven't flown since they went into implementation.
Yeah, ever since the TSA became the reality in the USA, I have not been on a PLANE. Okay, it's not something I do. But for those of you that do, I guess they could be the most beloved agency with the alphabet soup thing happening. Anyhow, of course, our wonderful friends at the TSA who have enjoyed a long stint of being able to molest us, harass us, have us take our shoes off, all under the guise of protecting the homeland from the terrorists who we are at war with over there so that we don't have to fight them over here because after all, 9/11, 9/11, 9/11, 9/11. Yeah, that organization.
Yeah, but it's a problem when the people who are protecting you from terrorism hire terrorists to
Mm.
pat you down at the airport, to watch your behavior, to judge whether or not you deserve some extra molestation in the back room, to put you through the scanner, and if you're a male, press a button around your genitalia region and mark you as a female, so it shows up as something that's abnormal, so they can get a really good look at your what God gave you.
Package.
Your package,
Okay.
whatever package that is, and the fact that out of 70 attempts by investigators to bring dangerous paraphernalia like box cutters onto airplanes, 67 of them were successful. So the terrorists that they hire to terrorize you at the airport for possibly being a terrorist say, that looks like it could be a box cutter, but it also could be a thing of lipstick. Let it pass. We'll see.
Mm. The
If
wait,
CNN reports on the plane later tonight, we'll know we were wrong.
well, the wait and see attitude, and of course, I, for one, do not believe that box cutters caused anything anytime recently, unless you're in a street fight somewhere at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then maybe a box cutter is useful. But otherwise, I've never seen it actually realistically involved in a world event. Oh well, that is a world-shattering, earth-shattering event, world-shaking event, whatever you want to say, unless you want to count the alleged scenario that led to 9/11, which, anyway, moving forward, the concept that they allowed this kind of stuff to get through, pretty funny. So they're not actually stopping anything that could be utilized as a weapon based on those tests, based on those trial runs. But they are doing some kind of work, and yeah, again, the question has to be asked, who is actually the terrorist? But, okay, moving forward, where are we at here? These are the guys that fail, that fail to, when they are tested, to stop, again, potential weapons and things like that. And they also have plenty of fun with individuals that they decide to pick out of the crowd for extra screening, despite the fact that, well, occasionally it just happens to be that one of their coworkers is looking to interact with more attractive members of a particular sexual gender, and therefore they get alerted and called over to do that extra screening. That happens, right? I mean, I'm imagining things, aren't I, Susanne?
No, that absolutely happens.
Oh, okay. I'm
No, it
sorry.
really
See,
does.
sometimes I'm not sure if I'm just imagining things that could go wrong or if I'm seeing things that are actually going wrong. I guess that happens on occasion. But
No, the TSA are like a really bad sitcom in reality. If this was on TV, we would laugh at the bumbling TSA. But this is actually happening to us. So it's not really very funny.
well, right,
Coupled with
and
the fact that 73 employees have ties to terrorists, and the General Inspector's Office, when they did their report, they concluded that these 73 people were not only related to terrorists, but they had codes put on them and they were in terrorist databases and they were an absolute threat to national security.
well, now let's be fair, and specifically, what types of individuals are we talking about? They had ties to, and what types of ties are we talking about?
We're talking about terroristic ties in the Middle East.
Okay, so to Middle Eastern terrorists, the people that we're allegedly at war with over the concept of terrorism, the fact that we're actually at war with terrorism and all that kind of stuff, the individuals that could very easily be tied to members of these groups that are the alleged greatest boogeyman on the planet, these are tied to them how exactly? I mean, because they're relatives, or what are we talking about?
The only thing that the GIO put in their report was that their names were attached to governmental codes, and that linked them up to terrorist databases. They were known to have terroristic ties, according to our government, as far as the FBI and the CIA are concerned. And those people were allowed through all of the checkpoints and the background checkpoints that the TSA has for their own employees, which happens to be as efficient as the ones at the airport, apparently, because they said, well, they're not a threat. The deputy to the Secretary of the Homeland Security said, these guys are not a threat. We looked it up, but we do recognize that we have to make improvements in our check verification system, and we're working on it. It is an evolution. But yeah, that's not accept. No, no, no. Listen, when you say that you are going to protect me from terrorism, there's no evolution involved. You come out of the gate with a specific plan and a specific implementation that will absolutely protect me from terrorism. Anything else is unacceptable. So what they're saying is, 14 years, we've had time to evolve, but it's a process that's still ongoing. We're learning from our mistakes. We'll get better at this. No, 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 no. No.
Well, interesting, because after all, the efficacy of not only the screening methodology utilized to try and keep hazardous things off of airplanes, that methodology is, well, let's see, just as effective as their methodology regarding screening their employees. So, well, they're consistent, aren't they? It seems as though it's a failure, is what it is, and it's been a continuous failure. Not only has it been a farce regarding the treatment of individuals and all of these ridiculous scenarios that we've heard about over the years. I mean, pulling colostomy bags off of people in wheelchairs and God knows what else. But I mean, all you have to do is think back just a little bit to get into the ridiculous nature of the misadventures of the TSA. But all of these things that are happening in order to keep us safe from the alleged terrorists, okay, while we fight the alleged war, actually it's a real war, but the war on alleged terrorism, all of these things going on, which are meant to be a preventative measure, well, how effective is it? Is it does it seem to have a logical and sort of effective methodology connected to everything it does? I guess the answer is no.
I would say emphatically it's a no. They took $900 million and spent it on a little bit over 3,000 employees to have behavioral officers walk around, and so they were going to assess your behavior at the airport, while you're swiping on your smartphone or you're reading a newspaper, or you're getting a coffee, waiting for your plane, and assess your behavior while you were getting molested if you were taking it the right way. I don't know how you're supposed to take that. But they're using all of this and $900 million of our taxpayer money to decide whether or not you're a terrorist using this behavioral system. Well, when the General Inspector's Office did a report on this, they said that there is no known scientific information or study that would allow the TSA to be able to judge a terrorist based on observable behavior in an airport. And I went and looked it up, and I couldn't find a scientific study showing the efficacy of observable behavior as a psychological tool to determine the actual agenda of a person.
So not only is the methodology ineffective, but it sounds to me almost as if you're saying that, in essence, there is no methodology attached to their behaviors. It's a crapshoot. Whoever they hired, though, should be responsible enough and probably, just well honed regarding their interpersonal skills and their abilities as individuals to deal with the public and discern for themselves exactly who could be a threat, who is not a threat, in fact. All of that wonderful stuff, well, wait a minute. They don't even pass background checks very well. So, what a mess. I mean,
14 years, I think the experiment is complete. I think if we just took these two reports, the one in 2014 and the one that just came out, if we just took those two reports from the government, the government inspector's office is saying that this is a failed experiment, is basically what they're saying. So I think 14 years is long enough. I think it's time to pull the TSA out, and if they want to figure something out, go back to the drawing board, that's fine. But in the meantime, I think we should go back to business as usual at the airports and be able to get on a plane without being sexually molested.
Oh, you mean like a pre-9/11 reality when it came to air travel?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I'm a radical.
Aren't you, though? Conspiracy theorist. Okay, now.
No, I only deal in facts. If it happens to be conspiratorial, then guess what?
No, you're a conspiracy theorist. Stop it. Okay.
All right.
Now.
Where's my tinfoil hat?
I don't know. I lost mine.
Oh.
But that's probably a conspiracy as well. Now, the thing about this, though, in all seriousness, I mean, I'm sitting there going back and forth, and I'm trying to play devil's dumb advocate here for a moment. But the reality is this. They have introduced this program, and I think to myself what I so often hear from individuals that were employed by the United States government in various offices. They always love to make the point to me that the government does not get its money's worth out of things. In other words, it always gets what it pays for. It may overpay for it, but it does generally get what it pays for. And when looking at something like this, it leads me to wonder if not, and here we go with the conspiracy theory angle, it leads me to wonder if we are not meant to have this kind of chaos and difficulty with travel and imperfections in the alleged protective system, okay, if that's not exactly what the intent is, so that the bureaucracy which has been erected there to put a stop to all that is actually not in need of dismantling and rethinking and going back to the drawing board, but maybe they'll say it needs to be augmented. In fact, an additional need to be made, maybe a whole new office or a whole new organization with a whole new set of, well, letters to be added to the alphabet soup will need to be created in order to make this organization, the TSA, a whole lot more effective and, well, to get it doing the job that it was intended to do in the first place. Maybe they'll require a whole new organization. Maybe that's actually the point of this, and allowing people to know from the Inspector General's office that this is not going well and it's in need of repair. It's in need of something extraordinary to be done. Perhaps this is the excuse, not running it properly, not making it into something that could have actually legitimately added to the safety of air travel in general. I mean, even if they were just keeping drunks off of planes, it might have been helpful, right? But maybe possibly the agenda really is to make sure that we get to add yet another bureaucracy, another layer of these drones that will be attached to some other alphabet set to, well, to continue the process, to simply create another organization for the sake of itself, and to then say that this is now the new checks and balances and we need time to work it out. And meanwhile, plenty of people will get paid, especially the individuals that come up with this new organization, which will need to augment the existing one. What do you think of that?
Well, I take a little bit of a different route. The fact that these things were discoverable means that the TSA is run by a bunch of idiots. And it really should be, at the very least, taken back to the drawing board and started over again. If not, in my opinion, completely scratched and never to return again. But the idea of utilizing this, stupid Monty Python type of screwing up by the TSA as a way to implement drones into our society, we already have them. The police have them, the FBI has them, the CIA has them, DHS has them, and they're all using them. So why would they create a stunt for something they're already using right now? That doesn't make any sense to me. But
well, by drones, I didn't just mean the technological drone. I meant actually, more warm bodies that really don't have a very solid thought process,
I think that's all we have to choose from. I mean, the TSA has,
that's true too.
Over time, we've been reporting on the idiots, the molesters, the intellectually challenged people that they hire. It's well known. It's a joke. It's so well known that it's a joke. And that is because they obviously don't do any background checks. They say that they do, but obviously they don't. They don't care about who it is. They just want a warm body there. I think the bureaucracy and the amount of money that is poured into subsets like the TSA from DHS line the pockets of a lot of the higher ups in those departments. And I think that is ultimately where this whole thing lies, why they're keeping this stupid, embarrassing, bumbling, idiot circus of a organization intact, is because the profit margin to their bonuses is so great that it's worth taking a couple of hits and making fun of, Jimmy Fallon making fun of them on late night, that they don't care because they're driving a Mercedes. They don't care because they just bought their new vacation home. These guys really, if they're getting what they want out of the situation, they don't care how embarrassing it is. They'll turn it into something lucrative eventually, once all of the circus dies down with the media. And it eventually always does. I mean, look at Josh Duggar. He's a molester. He's a child molester. And then I said on my show that we would see him in the news very soon, quicker than we think, as being promoted by the right wing. And sure enough, 2 days later, and I didn't mean to do this, 2 days later in the news, he's showing up at a Liberty conference for a evangelical organization as a speaker. So
right.
There we go, folks. The reality is we're dumb.
Right. Well,
and we make dumb decisions and we do dumb things, and those same stupid people sometimes get put in authoritative figure positions. It doesn't mean anybody who's got a boss knows exactly what I'm talking about. It doesn't mean that guy or that girl's more qualified than you are. In fact, you've got better ways of running things. You've gone home and you've got like composition books full of different ideas of how you'd run things better. It just means that they got that position for X or Y reason, and they are there. It doesn't mean that they're qualified to be there. The same thing happens in governmental organizations. We see that with our representatives on Capitol Hill. Obviously, they're bumbling idiots, but how did they get there? They didn't get there on intellectual merit, I can tell you that. Even though they've got to be intelligent, because they couldn't be there if they weren't, except for some reason, they're not utilizing the maximum potential of their intellectual capabilities because, I don't know.
They don't necessarily have to be intelligent. They just have to have intelligent people behind them, writing their scripts. So I think that's what we see there. But, yeah, all very, very good points. Now, I want to jump to something else. And why? Because I actually think it's a little bit of good news instead of this very sort of troubling continuation of what we already know, but we're getting confirmed, et cetera, kind of news that we've kind of covered so far. If you don't mind, I want to jump onto the interesting can of soup looking graphic over on OccupyCorporatism.com. Of course, the headline says trend-setting France bans Monsanto's Roundup for home gardens. Well, anything Monsanto being banned just, I don't know, warms a part of me. Maybe I'm just crazy and jumping to conclusions here, but does sound like a good thing when Roundup, which, well, we all know what that is, I mean, after all, but what are we talking about here in this article? Because this is jumping out at me, and I have not read it yet, but enlighten me. What's going on there?
Well, they decided that consumers should not have glyphosate-based herbicides as a product of choice to purchase in their Lowe's or Home Depot, their equivalent thereof, even in mom and pop shops. So they have put out a governmental ban for home gardens. And I think that that is incredible. I am behind that 100%. Because I think that is responsible governing. I'm not condoning every single thing that France has ever done by making that statement, but this is an example of responsible governing. Because it tells the corporations, we know you're putting out a product that is detrimental to public health, and we're not going to allow you to sell it. And if the public, I hate to say it this way, I can see the emails and the comments coming right now. If a corporation is selling a product that is detrimental to the public health and the public is continuing to buy it for whatever reason, the government is stepping in here in this stance and saying, we're not going to give you the choice to buy that product anymore. I agree with that.
Well,
I agree with that in the sense, just let me finish. Yeah. I agree with that in the sense that I, as a parent, make sure that my children don't juggle knives. Not that my 8-year-old isn't being taught how to use a knife when we're at the dinner table, if we're serving something that requires him to use a knife, and under both my husband and I's supervision, because he's like right there next to us. Sometimes the herd majority is not bright enough to do what's best for them. They just aren't. And that's not an affront to individual liberty. Just look. How many people stood in line and camped out for the iPhone that just came out and spent like $700 or $500 on credit cards just to buy it when it was made by a child in another country for $1.50? We do stupid things all the time. It might be that if we are not able to make a very good decision for ourselves, and in my opinion, this is a good decision, then we shouldn't have the choice to make. Now, I know that that's a slippery slope, and I'm not saying that we should have that idea across the board. There is a time and a place for that ideology. So I'm going to stop myself there before I get into any more trouble.
Well, it's okay, because listen, if you really want to continue, I mean, all right, announcement for the audience. Here's the bottom line. If you want to complain to Susanne about what she just said, I'm sure you can find her on Facebook. All right, now, the thing is this. If a government is going to be occupied with anything, this is the type of thing it should be occupied with, which is sort of informing the public and making it a problem for directly detrimental things to be introduced into the population. I mean, that's, if they're going to be involved with anything, that's what they should be doing. Should people know this for themselves? Should people have a concept that this stuff is detrimental? Yeah, they should, but they don't. So, and again, I never like to applaud anything the French do, but listen, when something's done well, it's done well, and I kind of have to agree with you on this, is that there is a time and a place for government entities to kind of do the right thing. It's definitely a breath of fresh air regarding corporate interests and the larger corporations that do dominate seemingly everything that government finds itself involved in. But, gee, it almost seems like they did something for the people here as opposed to just serving their corporate masters. So, I can't complain about it.
No, it's a good thing.
Right.
This, like I said, this is an instance where government did the right thing. And because of that, I'm sure that over the course of the next 10 years, if they did a study, they would see that health effects that are brought on by exposure to glyphosates would be reduced,
Mm-hmm.
especially in, now they're not outlawing it for industrial use. So agricultural workers who are most at risk, and they don't even have to have it sprayed on them. They could just be in the vicinity because your epidermis, your skin is so porous that it will attract everything and bring it into itself. So you could just be in the general area where it had been sprayed, even if it's several hours from the time of spray, where you could still be affected by this. But for home gardens, and a lot of people are doing home gardens right now, and this is a great way of making sure that those gardens remain healthy and not carcinogenic, because the whole purpose of the home garden is to get away from the GMO and the carcinogens in our grocery stores. But if you got it in your house, you're not really doing anything. You're just making more work for yourself.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And again, I don't like to applaud the French or anything, but it is what it is, and it's a positive note at the very least. So, gotta give a positive note every now and then, Susanne. You know, between the robot giving us the talk at TED and everything else there, we got to look for some things that are not wholly depressing and seemingly, the signs of the upcoming apocalypse and all that. Every once in a while, at least that's how I see it.
Well, I don't know. People have been predicting the apocalypse for centuries, and if the people who were waiting for it then were still waiting, they would be dead. Oh, wait, they are.
There you go.
Never mind.
This is absolutely true, and I'll tell you what. I'm willing to do this experiment. You want to do this experiment with me?
I love experiments. Yeah, let's just do it.
Okay, we're going to throw the phones open because I got an angry group of audience members out there, and I don't know. Let's just see what happens, because I've been getting all kinds of crap today and this week. And previous to the appearance that I made on Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis last night, I was getting plenty of hate messages anyway. But now, of course, UCY regular listeners are angry at me because I did not directly mention UCY when I was on the air last night. So, therefore, I'm an extremely bad guy who is not on board with promoting his network and all that. However, you guys don't know the whole situation and so on and so forth. But, hey, that's okay. I'm just an ingrate that you guys never liked anyhow. So, bottom line is, those that are UCY listeners that are completely disgusted by me, who are in all likelihood already tuned out to this show, don't worry. Something will change soon, and your world will be happier. Anyhow, moving forward, if you want to call in and join into this conversation, if you want to just talk to Susanne because I'm a completely repugnant human being, or if you want to, well, see, now I will not let you abuse the guest, but if you want to abuse me, that's fine. If you want to talk to Susanne or abuse me or both, that's fine. 718-717-8296. I don't usually throw the phones open when you're on with me, but given the strange messages on Facebook and even a couple via Twitter that I've gotten.
Oh, really? Like what? Can you read them?
I don't even want to characterize this stuff.
Oh, wow.
It's so bizarre that, we're ignoring a lot of things, and they're obviously listening and not happy with the stories we covered. So, by all means, 718-717-8296. Okay? There you go. And for those in the chat room, I do not have the chat room open, so I'm not looking at it anymore because I'm tired of hearing the same story. Okay. So there we go. Let's continue forward, Susanne.
Okay.
What other... Oh, okay. Actually, Kim, you want to ask a question, hon, or you want to talk about something?
Sure. Let me just get my headphones on.
All righty. So Kimberly Ochelli, who's generally the host of Jaded on Saturday nights on UCY here, is trying to untangle the headphones that I tangled up over on the side. And I guess she wants to join into the conversation. In the meantime, you want to move on to another article?
Yeah, let's go. Let's get in the
Okay.
car and go.
Well, and I have
Hi, Suzanne.
a call.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. I haven't been called a bigot yet.
Oh, no?
I was this week, or was it last week? I was called a bigot by several people. I did a appearance on John B. Wells, and a couple of his audience members called me a bigot. I've never in my life been called a bigot, so I still don't know how to take that.
Well,
But
you know, sometimes you take it as a compliment.
That's okay, Suzanne. After all, you're not in the category of being a secret Jew or a Jew slave like I am, so it's okay because that's
maybe I'm just too bigoted to realize my bigotry.
pretty good.
That's a good one.
So would that be that I'm far too secret of a Jew, or I'm far too Jew
You're
secret
far too
to be
Jew.
aware of it?
You're so Jewish that you don't even know it.
Yeah.
You're so Jewish that it's so deep down inside you that even you aren't aware of your Judaism.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That is
That
an
should be a
amazing
t-shirt.
statement, and that should be a
I'm
T-shirt.
thinking.
And perhaps it is true.
It should be a Woody Allen movie.
There you go. Actually, I
and here
just
we
wanted
go.
to, because I don't get to talk to Chuck much during the day because, you know, we have our terror 1-year-old who's wrecking havoc on everyday things. But, where was that? First of all, I love when you're on, Suzanne. I love everything you have to say. I find you to be just wonderful to listen to. I take a lot of your information and I apply it to my own everyday things. You know, and but secondly, since I don't get to talk to Chuck during the day because I'm either taking care of my neighbor, taking care of the baby, or dealing with a neighbor who's got a problem, whatever, I just wanted to say how very proud I am that he was on Ground Zero last night. I to me that is a huge accomplishment, and I could not be prouder.
Well,
I couldn't be. Because there have been people who have been doing this for years, whose work has not gone even remotely looked at like yours. And, you know, I stood by you at the very beginning, and I will stand by you at the very end. And it's wonderful to hear that people are finally listening. You know what I mean? I think it's terrific. And I could not be happier. And as your wife, I love you, and I'm very proud of you. And I will always be proud of you. And to the haters, they can keep on hating, because that's all it is. Those people don't matter because the message isn't getting to them anyway.
well, look, I thank you for that. I really wasn't looking to focus on it. I just commented on it before you came in the room.
Oh, well, I'm not listening. You could have heard the baby screaming a half mile down the
Yeah,
street. But
I don't know. Probably people heard it through the microphone. I
Oh,
apologize. He was throwing some tantrums there, but
yeah, 1-year-old titty tantrums. But anyway,
yeah.
I don't get the opportunity, and especially with something that is this enormous in your in your short career. Really, it's been a little bit over a year, and to be invited and recognized by somebody with the caliber of my favorite, Clyde Lewis, I think it's amazing, and like I said, I could not be any more proud, and I will continue to stand by you and continue to help you do whatever it is that you want to do with what it is you're doing. And the two of us together are a force that will not be broken. That's all I got to say.
Well, how can I even begin to respond to that? But
You
look,
don't have to respond. I just wanted to our listeners, and even the ones that don't listen and don't like and don't care, they can either turn it off or go away. It's not for them. This is me telling you in the biggest way possible, other than renting an airplane and having a big sign fly over the house saying how proud I am of you, that I am very proud of you.
well, thank you, hon.
You're welcome. And I love you.
Hi, Kim.
Hey,
Hello, Kim.
I've actually joined Vince
Oh, hey,
Easley
Vince.
into the conversation, and I wanted to...
Couple of my for sure people right here, plus Kim. Hi, Suzanne.
Hello.
Yeah, you guys are both awesome. And Chuck, I said a month or so back, it was really good to see you getting some exposure that your talent deserves. I love what both y'all do. Very, very hardworking, both of y'all. Present a lot of information. But I just wanted to call in and say hi. I've been listening. I can't get in. My HTC Android died here a week or so back, got wet, and so my computer ate it during Nathan's show Sunday night. So anyways, it looks like I'm going to be out for a little while, but I got to take and look at it as a good thing. I've got this trailer I'm buying, so I've been working on it, and going to be preparing some more gardening, and so I'm going to concentrate on physical and nutritional health through the summer and getting ready for winter, and then be back by then, surely. But yeah, I'll be pretty rare. I can't get on. I've got two different phones, but I can't get into chat, but I can get into Facebook. But Facebook ain't really my thing anymore. As y'all know, I've been over on World Truth. But anyways, hey, you guys keep on doing what you're doing. And the three of us have worked together a lot, and I really appreciate everything that y'all have ever done for me out there in the desert and north of Vegas. And Chuck and I and Suzanne both have, all three of us have rolled around a little bit on the airways, I guess.
Just a bit. Did you hear any of the stories we were talking about earlier, Vince?
Yeah, I've been listening the whole time. Matter of fact, I've had UCY on for 24/7 all week long. I thought my computer was going to fire up today, but it didn't. And I was trying to find a disk, but I don't know if it'll accept a new disk anyways. But hey, it made it over 4 years, so I guess that was a pretty good run for a laptop, according to what I hear. So.
Yeah, well, I can't keep them to last that long. So, so about those stories we were talking about, though, you brought up gardening. Of course, what do you think about France finally getting rid of the glyphosate, the Roundup there for home gardening? What do you think about that?
Well, I think people in France, they go down to the market and they get their bread and poking out of the bag and their vegetables, and they even got the greens on the carrots they take home with them. They've always been a little more conscious about eating. It's more of a, I guess, a ritual as opposed to just, running to McDonald's and getting a whole bunch of empty calories and cramming them into a lardass. So it may just be cultural and a reflection of that. I don't know, but I don't know. It's like Hal says, people are calling for labeling and, this sort of thing, and all that is given permission. So ultimately, we have to be conscious of our own choice of what we intake. But when other people, they're people, corporations, are doing things that spill over onto us, or the small farmer, that he gets sued because he's got some cross-contamination from a patent seed on his farm that blew over on his farm. Nothing he did, right? So we need to hold to account these people, this corporatocracy, and address them at every level that we can, and just keep on fighting. And sometimes things happen, like I guess, for a reason, and it gives us a moment to pause and realize we need to take that fight and fight for ourselves. So in 2011, I was in top shape. Earlier this year, I'm going to be 51 in October. I was like, man, I never looked at myself and thought of me getting old. And poor Jewel, she's tied to this network so bad too. She needs a break. I was really, really hoping to be able to spell her for the summer, but I think we all need to untether sometimes and get out there and make something happen for ourselves. I know all of us and so many in the industry have been working, for the benefit of others, because we're surely not making any money or doing it for any self-gratification, I don't think. Personally, my personality is I've never met a stranger, and I've talked to people for a couple of decades about many of the issues that we're talking about right now, in this today and time. So, like
and in general, it's a good thing that there's less Roundup being distributed anywhere in the world, regardless of where it is, because this stuff is absolutely detrimental to the human species. Okay, so any reduction in that crap, I'm happy to hear about personally.
Yes, and like you all was saying earlier, there's no accident. Everything's set up, designed to. It's all got its purpose in their plan. It all plays its little part, whether it be destroying our gut and our ability to uptake nutrients, destroying the family, putting everybody to work, and training them from kindergarten on, and it is unfortunate that when it's all said and done, and a person's invested all that time into their career and schooling and all the bells and whistles in life, and it's hard to say this system is wrong because like Susanne, you said earlier, you've got so much time invested in it, and just it's hard to walk away. Sometimes you just got to get up and leave your pennies on the table, and it'll come to that one day, and just depends on how many pennies you got left over out of a dollar.
Absolutely true. Well, look, Vincent, we're going to run out of time here, man. I appreciate you calling in, and I wish I had something to offer you to help you with the computer.
No. It all. I believe everything works the way it's supposed to. I love the universe. It always lines up for me, so I always take it and roll with it and make the best of it. Just wanted to call in, and I haven't been online or anything since then, so just wanted to kind of put the word out that I didn't get lost or anything, and I wanted to say hi to everybody listening over in chat. And if you got my number, call me. Big love, y'all. Take care.
All right, Vince. Take care, brother. Anyway, we only have a few more minutes left, so Susanne, I always do this and say to you, what would be your final thoughts on this rather weird conversation we generally have, because it's definitely, well, I don't know if it's weird, but it's definitely atypical. How about that? When you come on my show, so I wonder if you have any sort of parting thoughts for everybody.
This is your life. You can live it as you choose. You can believe anything you want. But your beliefs dictate your decisions and your emotional state. And if you don't like the way you feel, and if you don't like the decisions that you're making because the outcomes and the consequences are not what you intended, then it might be that you need to not allow outside influences to be the 51% of defining factor in your decision-making skills. We absolutely need to refine this. We're at a critical stage where we are on the precipice of a real big change, ideologically, sociologically, governmentally, across the globe. Everyone's going through this. So, and it is an imperative that we do not make the same mistakes as we did in the past. And the only way to stop that is to make different decisions and different choices to allow us to actually have an open mind about what we think is right and wrong, and stand for the things that are not negotiable with us. Even if no one is standing with you, you don't have to do it in public. Your life can be the protest. And in the end, this is your life. These are your days. This is your existence. And someday you're going to die. So what are you going to be thinking about on that deathbed? If what you're doing now, the position and the place you're in now, is not something that you would be boastful about in those final days, then maybe it's time for you to make a change. Sit down and think about yourself, your life, what you're doing, what you're consuming, not just your food, but your media as well, your friends, your relatives, everything that is affecting you and changing you and hindering you from enjoying these absolutely precious moments. Every moment is precious. You can't get it back and you can't change it. And it is what it is. So you might as well enjoy it.
Right. After all, life is certainly what you make of it, and your own considerations, trying to have some trust in yourself to discern what is important, what is not important, placing priorities on what it is you choose to consume, not only physically, but psychologically and emotionally, will certainly change the character of your experience, and your experiences will all vary because we as individuals all vary. But we are part of the same collective, which is the living human species on the planet, at least as far as I know. And that's all there is.